Hey! So Matterhackers teamed up with BCN3D Technologies to let me review their latest marble, the Sigma R17. I had the opportunity last year to review the BCN3D Sigma R16 thanks to Hawk 3D Proto and together with BCN, of course. So we're more than excited to try out the R17 and see what the differences were and see if they had considered the feedback. So if you're new to the channel, you might have missed that I did a quite extensive raw vlogging about the first days with the Sigma R17. So I really do recommend checking those out maybe before or even after this review. Now, on to it. Let's start it off with what's advertised so we know what we have to consider when we're using this machine, or when I'm using it, so I know what to test it for. So here are some guidelines of the new features. Hot-end family. So there's a range of hot-ends from 0.3mm up to 1mm. So there are 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.8 and also of course the 1mm. There is something called Sigma ProGen, which is a profile generator. So you just select what hot-end you have installed and what material that is loaded, and it will then create profiles for Cura and Simplify 3D all through their website. You also have new stepper drivers, improving the power management, reducing the noise, and supplying more accuracy, really. You also have a re-engineered cooling strategies, which means that it's much more quiet, both in running and also in passive mode. And about passive, you have a capacitive touchscreen that improves the user experience. And of course, the IDEX is still the most featured or most unique feature of the Sigma R17. And it's advertised to do a few things. It allows you to print beyond geometric limitations using water-soluble supports and combining material properties like rigid materials with soft materials. It allows you to use the most suitable hot-end for each product. So for example, you could print a very detailed part with a 0.3mm nozzle, or print a really massive and strong model with a 0.8 or 1mm nozzle. You could use the 0.5mm special nozzle to print with abrasive materials like the carbon fiber or metal infused filaments. And of course you can do something really cool, which is combine nozzle sizes. So for example, using a 0.3mm and a 1mm in the same model allows you to get detailed surface with a coarse infill, for example. The IDEX system really reduces the material cross-contamination by having these purge chambers. So BCN, that all sounds really good, but I need to test it out. So first of all, how easy is it to get going with the machine? Is it even pre-built? Well, yeah, it is. It's as easy as it really gets. We not only get the printer pre-assembled, we also have everything we need to get going, like filament and 3D lac, and yeah, a few tools as well. So just with the Sigma R16, you have to clip in the guide tubes and attach them to the wires, which is these connectors. And you do that on the machine. And I notice here that these guide tubes, they actually touch in back of the machine. And that is something you should consider maybe making a little bit of adjustment on, or just print a holder that pushes the guide tube out of the axle, because that will wear down, and it did that on the R16, a little bit for me at least. So I'm going to design my own that you can print. It's probably going to be down in the description. We'll see about that. So these printer clips as well that were used on the R16, they actually had a tendency to crack. So I'm really happy that they listened to the feedback, and for this model it's such a small thing, but they did change it and they are much stronger. I haven't had any one break at all. So next up we load the glass bed, and yeah, unfortunately it's still the same design as last year. The glass is great, even though I heard somebody actually cracked one of the glass plates. Maybe that was temperature or bad manufacturing. But it's still a little bit easy to actually not get it in the correct place. The magnets that are attached really do a good job on keeping it in space, but they also make it a little bit hard to align everything, and I would appreciate an improvement there, somewhere in the future at least. It does work, but it could be a little bit better. So next up, calibration and loading material. So when I power on the machine for the first time and started off with this setup calibration that has a really nice looks to it thanks to the touchscreen, I noticed that there was a really bad noise. Whoa, that's not good. So I'm wondering what's up here. Well, it turns out that the axle actually moved during transportation or my unboxing. So it went too far forward, which meant that it couldn't reach the end stops. Well, again, it's nothing that affects the machine, but it's just really scary when you do that first movement with the machine. It does all that sound. You can see it in the vlogs, it was kind of serious. And also, another great thing with the ease of this machine is that when you load a material, you just select what kind of material you loaded. And so PLA, ABS, PVA, for example, and it will keep that profile as well, helping with preheats and everything like that. That's a great settings, and it really helps get going quickly. And the rest of the calibration, as you can see in the vlogs, if we want to see the whole process, super easy. It's even semi-adaptive. So it takes your input on which line were the best. It does a few lines, and you then have to visually expect which one was the best one, and therefore the machine just goes from there. And also worth mentioning about the calibration is that even though I moved this machine around in an apartment a few times, I've changed the nozzles a dozen of times, screwing them out and in, I still haven't had to recalibrate it, and it's still perfect on the models. So that's really, the ability to swap between these hot ends is really great, especially when you have two extruders, so which you do here. This lets you do all crazy kind of stuff where you combine the nozzle sizes from a 0.4 to a 1mm, for example, where you can do like an infill that is another color or nozzle, like I did here. And why not even combine using a fine detail with a smaller nozzle and a bigger on the bigger. So maybe you just need to have a hinge part of your model in a certain resolution and the rest in drafts. You can do that. Maybe you even want to use 1mm for PVA, for example, and you can use a regular 0.4mm nozzle for the actual models, and you just do a crazy amount of different types. And it's even difficult to grasp what is possible with this. So that is something that I will continue exploring. But yeah, the possibilities are so many, and I could go on and on about it. But what's more important is that, is it easy to swap them? Yeah, and it is easy to swap. You unload the material, unscrew 4 screws, unplug a connector, you take out the guide tube and remove the hot end. And yeah, you really should put it into the right place, because even though they are marked really beautifully, it's kind of easy to kind of misplace them. Someone's done that. And then you just put in the new hot end that you want to use, and you do the steps in reverse order. It's that easy, done. No calibration needed, but you know, if you want to do it, it's not a bad idea. Cool, so the hardware so far is great. What about the software, you ask? Well, the new ProGen profiles are super nice to use, and me, since I'm a big fan of Simplify 3D, I had no issues at all. It was just super great being able to import the FFF profile and use the pre-configured figures for all my materials. And to do that, all you really do is to select the nozzles you have loaded, which is the hot ends, and then if you have one of the selected brands of filament, or use someone that is really close. And then that's it. You click generate and you get a profile for either Simplify 3D or Cura, and that's it, you're ready to go. Worth noting here is that Simplify 3D profiles are pre-configured for a X and Y compensation, which could create some artifacts if you're doing really advanced models with small details. I can't see why it's needed. I haven't really been able to measure it. Then again, I don't have the technical equipment to do those kind of accurate tests. I think it's off by 0.1mm, but it could affect it. And I mean, to be honest, I haven't needed to tweak any of the settings when using the materials that are within the ProGen. When I start to experiment a little with other brands of materials, there are some tweaks that you have to do, maybe with some flow, speed, temperatures, and just small things like that. And speaking of adjustments, that's something you can do on the fly. So if you for some reason need to do this, which you could do, you can adjust the settings via the touchscreen while you're printing. You can change speeds and temperatures, just like regular printers. So speaking of adjusting things during print, we should probably print something. Let's get some 3D models out there. Alright, so you saw some examples here. I think they look really cool, but I think we should talk more about PVA printing. PVA support materials are great, but they're still not perfect. PVA is quite annoying to deal with since it's affected by water and humidity, so keeping the spool in the machine is not a great idea. It will attract moisture, and that will lead to a material that kind of boils in the extruder, and this is much harder to control for your printer, and you get some more stringing, under extrusion, over extrusion, and just a bit more messy print. So make sure that you store your PVA really well and just use it. Maybe so you don't think that that matters, but it actually does. Since the PVA is supporting your primary material, if the PVA is bad, that will reflect onto the primary material as well. So the general practice is to always keep your PVA super dry and just have it outside of the printer. When you're not using it, of course. And keeping it dry, maybe you have some silica gel or something like that. And dissolving all the PVA also needs some explanation. You want to use as much water as possible so that it won't get saturated. You want to have some sort of circulation, and that also helps a lot. I personally usually rinse my models and I stir them around. Maybe I use a toothbrush at the end just to get everything off. And if you're printing a lot with PVA, try to remove as much as possible before actually starting the print. So for this, for example, I could remove the whole raft, and that doesn't have to be dissolved. But again, be careful with your model if you have small details. And lastly, dual extrusion. I mean, dual extrusion in general with this machine is just wow. Mixing materials works like a charm. The profiles include something called Z-hop, which moves the build plate up and down, and that helps keeping the nozzle from interfering with the model when you print with two different nozzles. And add to that the small containers in the beginning that wipes the nozzles and act as a purge container. So when the nozzles are primed, filling with plastic, they fill up these containers. These containers and purging do take a few seconds on each swap of toolhead, and could, and probably will, be refined in newer firmware and slicing profiles as well. So your prints are gonna be quicker, I hope at least. But they do make a great function for a printer and keeps the dual extrusions from really being, keeps it great. So for example, if you do a fine detail on a big model, the nozzle that isn't active would be probably just staying hot for a really long time. That would mean that when it starts again, there might not be any filament left. So that's why you have to purge and prime that nozzle so you have some filament before entering the model and starting printing. So the conclusion, and I think I'm ready to tell you what I really feel about the machine. And after using it a few weeks, actually 2 months right now. So first of all, I'm really happy that BCN3D took the feedback from both me and the other reviewers and refined the printers on the matters that was really important. So that really builds loyalty and trust as a manufacturer, and even caring about the former customers with the R16, they made an upgrade, so you can actually upgrade your R16 to a R17. All of this is already a really big plus in my personal book, and is something that not everyone does. So the specs of the machine as well is pretty awesome, just by itself. So it has a build volume of a A4 paper, which is 210 by 297, and then 210 tall as well. So that build size should fit most models. And it works really well as well with all the different types of materials. Even though it's not completely enclosed, the heated bed keeps the air hot as well. So printing with ABS is great, but of course when you max your build size with ABS, that's going to be like with any printer, you might have some issues with micro cracks and of course warping in general. Because even if you have a hot bed that it sticks, the plastic will still kind of want to warp a little bit further up in the model. So that's something to consider. Don't expect like the best possible ABS printer. It works great with it, but when you do two big things, it's still going to warp a little bit. You could probably build some kind of enclosure as well, but I wouldn't do too much since the electronics will be damaged and so on. But again, ABS works well, but don't max it if you're doing a first print or if you're leaving it unattended. And again, the IDEX system is really a unique solution to the dual extrusion, and I really enjoy it. It's also extremely beautiful to watch, and compared to the R16 last year, there's nothing I can complain on. It's actually even better with mechanics. There are no more micro vibrations or ghosting, nothing that I could see at least. And with the color contamination, there's really nothing, which is a great job. So in general, I mostly have positive things to say about the Sigma R17 and R16 as well. But it works really well. It fits the target customer group of semi-professional and professional users who are getting their first or maybe their second 3D printer. The main reason here is because the platform has a unique dynamic approach which allows an user to really set it up with all the nozzles and all combinations to do whatever suits them. Add to that a printer that you can really grow into, meaning that you can start off with easy PLA prints, for example, and then grow into nylon and carbon-infused materials, metal-infused materials, and combining, of course, materials and functions, which is something that you get more of a professional use case. And then again, an even more both professional and like user-friendly ability to use the PVA support material is also super impressive. It's not flawless as with any printer, but it is so much better than having to work with your hands. Nobody likes to do that. So this machine's ability to cover most of each and single 3D printing application makes it one of the most versatile printers I've ever tried or even heard about. Carbon fiber infused materials, check. Nylon materials, check. PVA supports, check. Dual extrusion colors, check. Awesome design, double check. And alright, before we kick this off, a few positive and a few negative remarks. So let's start off with some from my personal experience. Positive. It has a great dual extrusion, it has a big build volume, has a good heated bed and heated plates, and swappable extruders. There is no calibration needed really after your first one, and the ProGen Simplify 3D profiles are just awesome. Some negative things. So these so-called poop trays where you prime, they do fill up kind of quickly, and you can sort that out if you want to. It does spill out and spills out and dirts down your machine. The glass plate is still kind of easy to get out of alignment when you're putting it in and taking it out. The guide tubes do wear on the rear axle, so that's something that you should look out for. And my extruders move during chipping. So that's about it for my personal experience. With that said, if we look at all the forums and group, there are apparently some users that have had a little bit of issues with the extruders, and I still don't understand what. I'm pushing a lot of filament through. I don't see any of those issues, so maybe I had a perfect model and people had worse ones, or maybe they're abusing theirs. I don't know and I can't tell you, but in my experiences the machine has been really easy to use, and it has been a pleasure using actually. Having been really fun to be able to print with ease. I mean, being able to change the nozzle again is something that I really like to do. For example, I do my camera rigs, so I want to print some carbon fiber materials, but then I also like to do these transparent things, the vases, as you saw my ColorFab XT. Being able to just swap around the nozzles, do whatever I need for whatever application is something that I really enjoy. And I think on that terms, it's time to leave this video, it's time to leave this review. Hopefully it has been informative, you enjoyed everything. Let me know if there's something that you think I missed out. I will hopefully keep this for a few more weeks, testing even more and doing some projects with it before returning it. So make sure that you comment down below, let me know what I should test out next. And of course, like, share this with a friend that needs to have a look at that pretty awesome printer. And again, check out the other content on my channel. Check out Community 3D Printer, it's also down there. And what else is there? Yeah, stay awesome. I'm gonna stay awesome, so you should too. With that said, see you guys in the next video. Bye.